Plants and animals not native to the high weald can rapidly spread in the countryside to the detriment of local native species as they compete with them for light and food. To preserve the native wildlife throughout the high weald area of outstanding natural beauty, there needs to be an awareness that simple actions may have disastrous effects, and care must be taken to avoid the spread and establishment of alien species.
The plant behind me is Rhododendron ponticum, and if I'd stood on this spot 250 years ago, there would be no Rhododendron ponticum here. It was collected by plant collectors in the mid-18th century and brought over to this country. They were attracted by its bright purple flowers, and it was widely planted in country estates throughout the high weald and posh homes of the rich. Sadly, it did not stay within the confines of the garden, and it spread, and by the late 1800s was found throughout the high weald, and in the last 50 years in particular has become a serious problem. And being a non-native introduced species, it's not good for high weald wildlife. Here at Buchan Country Park near Crawley, a site of about 69 hectares, when we looked at aerial photos, we found around 20% of the country park was covered in dense Rhododendron ponticum. And not only that, it was spreading on all fronts at around a metre a year, because as well as setting seed, the plant will also lay it into the ground, whereby a branch will touch soil, form roots, and that way it spreads and forms dense thickets, and it shades out all other plants. Wherever you've got acid grassland, wherever you're trying to establish perhaps heathland or any acid soil conditions, rhododendron, if it's nearby, will spread into that habitat. In fact, often on a country walk in the high weald, you can detect if you're getting near habitation, perhaps a large country house, because you'll see a rhododendron or possibly a laurel before you see the house. And what's happened is the Rhododendron ponticum has hopped the garden fence and started that process of colonising or perhaps even infesting the native woodland. It's taken nearly 15 years of concerted effort to remove most of the rhododendron. We need to go for full eradication. All the time we have one shrub, there's a chance of the plant re-invading. We've tackled it in a number of ways. A lot of it has been cleared by mechanical excavator. The roots have been dug up. Some smaller plants have been treated with herbicides such as Roundup, and we've also put in many thousands of man hours with volunteers cutting and treating the cut stumps of rhododendron. But I would urge people to buy other rhododendrons or possibly azaleas. There are other acid-loving plants, equally attractive, but they will stay put. They will not hop the garden fence and become a problem for high weald wildlife. Apart from the Rhododendron ponticum, we have New Zealand pygmy weed, which can infest ponds and other waterways, and parrot's feather is another plant. The pygmy weed here at Buchan Park may have arrived quite innocently on a children's pond dipping net. It may have been collected from one pond, a tiny remnant of the plant may have stuck to the net. The pond here was dipped and the plant spread. It can be as invasive as the Rhododendron ponticum and will choke out native plants and wildlife. It's bad news. And parrot's feather is another plant that, a non-native plant that can invade all sorts of open fresh water, again threatening the habitat and native wildlife such as frogs and toads. Not quite sure how these plants move around. It could be that they move around on perhaps the feathers and legs of wildfowl for the larger ponds, but certainly they are often planted in garden ponds, and sadly they are still available for sale from many aquatic plant centres. So it's much better, if you're putting in a pond, to stick to more native plants such as marsh marigold rather than these exotic alien plants.